What is your job title?
My job title here is a media technician. Are you asking overall or just specifically about this job?
Specifically about this job.
There you go.
Oh. Is there any particular entry route to your job that you're doing?
Having a qualification in film production from a university would be the entry into this job.
So what type of contract are you on?
That's a good question. I'm on a permanent part-time contract.
What are the pros and cons of the contract?
The pros of the contract are I have the flexibility to move around some of my days with like a week's notice, so I can do other work outside of working in this institution. Cons are sometimes they can't be changed, and I therefore can't move days around and have to lose work to this job. Yeah.
How do you do push work?
Run away. I deal with it by problem solving most of the time and trying to assess the best possible outcome of the situation. Depending on when that arises, that could be on a daily basis or trying to look forward, foresight, to see what we need to order and need to make your lives easier or lectures happen.
Have you done freelancing work before?
Yes, the rest of the time I work as a freelance director of photography, editor, and or colorist, or camera operator. So mainly in music and events, filming festivals, corporate videos, music videos, that sort of stuff.
Why did you freelance? I'm curious to
I chose to do freelance because essentially you're setting up my own business as myself. So I work as in the category of a sole trader. So I'm selling my skill set that I've learned through study, usually at a higher rate per hour or per day than you would find in a staff position. So working the two jobs allows financial stability through working here, and then more in the creative and financial gain in my other position as a freelancer.
How do you typically measure your results?
My results,
Yeah. How do you measure them?
where it was pretty easy in terms of do you mean in freelancing? Yeah. So in freelancing, it's usually if a project goes out. So if, which I haven't had anything fail so far, but usually if the project's got a deadline, it hits the deadline, it goes out. Usually you've done pretty well. Also through the measure of its social push, if it's a social piece, or from feedback from the production company that I've been working for, if it's not a social piece of content.
What type of project that you on?
Sorry, mate.
What type of project that you on?
As mainly, as I say, it's in the music industry, so it's a lot of promotion work for DJs, bands, and usual coverage of events like festivals and things like that. Also, fashion work. I used to do some stuff for Hype and some other things, and other than that, it's kind of like interviews and corporate or personal work.
What would you like to do in 5 years' time?
Be freelancing full-time and ideally working more as a director of photography and less in the other aspects of what I do. Or a camera operator, either of the two really.
Do you have any questions for us?
Why did you choose to interview me?
Because you're a funny guy.
Cheers, babe.
No. I guess hold on. Because we want to understand how freelance works and how like a part-time job can affect it.
Well, freelancing, obviously, there's pros and cons. If we talk about the pros and cons, like I talked about this position, we talk about pros and cons of freelancing. Is the cons of freelancing mainly is that you're, depending on if you've not got contractual obligations to when you're choosing to take a job, your deadlines can be pushed around and are very malleable, in my experience. Especially in the huge push of social content that needs to be made now for social channels. So if you look at all the Instagram and whatever else video content that's being made that I provide and create for, because of the pace that it needs to change and comes out at, usually deadlines, as I said before, are quite malleable. So you lose a lot of personal time and the ability to set your own like boundaries, I guess, in a way. So a very common problem with freelancing is overworking and over-producing in terms of the hours that you put into a project, usually either from your own, because you want to make it better, or just because of the amount of work you're getting paid for. So one of the hardest parts of it is battling how much work you're doing compared to what you're getting paid, and being able to regiment yourself to only do the hours that the job's actually worth. And that, unfortunately, is kind of systemic in the creative sector, because they know they've got tons of young people that want to make and use their creative talents, then they can manipulate them and use them generally for low-paid work. So that's one of the cons. One of the pros is that when you do get jobs that are, from actual people with contracts and everything else goes fine, you can make quite a lot of money quite quickly, and because of the turnaround of these things, some of it's quite simple. So if you can get repeat simple work, then you can obviously build a lot of money quickly, and then if you're getting money from something that's a continuous avenue, you can then obviously work on projects that mean more to you and can push your career more, because you've been getting a more regular income. And that's where maybe the part-time and aspect works quite well, in my experience and other people I know's experience.
So, how do you communicate your results?
How do I communicate my results? I mean, a lot of the areas of what we do, or what I do anyway, are quite, what's the word I'm looking for?
At the end of
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to explain a sentence and completely lost the word that I need, which is saying, because I can't think of it. Thank you. In terms of multiple perspectives on something, Riyadh, please help me here. The word for something that's subjective, thank you. So a lot of the end aspects of my work are to do with subjectivity. So especially in the kind of creative video work, unless you've got a very obvious goal to hit, a lot of my job is to interpret someone else's brief and make something that I know works from my kind of skill set as a videographer or a camera operator or whatever. So when you're pushing your ideas on someone, or knowing that you've come to the end of a project, it also comes usually with a pitch from me. So yeah, because, as I was saying, because it's very subjective in itself, it's quite hard to actually know when you've got you usually know when you've got a final product, but if it's good or not, it's kind of up to you and how you can sell it. So a large part of my job is being able to sell what I've done and explain why it's worth something. The way I do that usually is just through delivering the product and talking about it. There's no real measurements that I use consistently. So that was a bit convoluted.
So about the deadline, what would you do if you miss a deadline?
Usually just be honest, in my experience. If I'm missing deadlines, are usually to do with technical or other life experiential issues that you can move through. So if you've got good communication with your client, then you've usually got it down most of the time. It's not really that much of a problem. But that's where I talk about the lack of personal time that you end up with, because lots of sleepless nights. What would I do if I miss a deadline? As I said, I just explain and usually talk about everything that led up to me missing the deadline is why, and give them a realistic projection of when it will be finished and why that happened.
What skills do you need for your job?
What, sorry?
What skills do you need for your job?
Depending on what I'm doing, they vary quite a lot. So obviously my background comes through doing further and then higher education, and then from the degree I kind of branched out from that. So depends on what job I'm doing, but mainly it would be lighting and camera operation would be the skill set I need for the majority of my job, and the things here are kind of like an IT background from working in an environment and supporting learners. Anybody else?
So, anyone have any questions? So, one of the last questions that we want to know is just tell us something what it takes to be a good team there.
Being self-aware of your own limitations, I think, is the best way to work within a team. So if you know what you're good at and what you're bad at, then you know where you can add in the best way within a team environment. Especially in terms of the creative end, it's all, as I was saying before, very subjective, and you're working with a huge amount of different people a lot of the time. Especially if you are a freelancer, just being slotted into different teams, being able to get on with people and understand where you work best and maybe where they work best as well. So getting a good insight into that. That would be my, just kind of be aware of what you're good and bad at all the time, because it's the only thing that's going to give you a measurement on anything with work.
So, thank you very much.
It's all right. It was helpful.